miraculous dawn. The winter winds rattled the shutters of the royal palace in Jerusalem. King David, weary from years of conquest and rule, gazed at the child in the cradle. This was no ordinary infant. Bathsheba, his mother, held her breath. Every midwife and servant spoke in hushed tones, "The Lord has done this." From the moment the cries first pierced the night, there was a sense that heaven itself leaned in to watch. Solomon's birth was nothing short of miraculous. His mother had endured grief, controversy, and heartbreak, yet in the depths of adversity life bloomed. The same God who had guided Abraham, Moses, and David had crowned their lineage with a son whose name would mean peace. Even the palace walls seemed to hum. A new era was coming. News spread swiftly beyond Jerusalem. Merchants paused in the streets, scribes etched the announcement on clay tablets, and traders in distant markets spoke of the baby destined for the throne. Imagine a world where word of a child's birth traveled by caravan and courier, yet within days, every corner of the kingdom knew something extraordinary had happened. As Bathsheba gazed into her son's eyes, she saw both vulnerability and promise, the hush of dawn and the blaze of noonday. And within young Solomon, the seeds of wisdom were already taking root. He would grow to see visions of unity and prosperity, but first he would learn to listen. Child of wisdom, heir of a king. By the time Solomon could walk, courtiers were whispering about the spark in his gaze. He would sit among the elders, absorbing their debates on justice and mercy. While other children chased goats and played by the wells, Solomon lingered in the royal library, tracing the shapes of ancient texts with small fingers. One afternoon, David summoned him. The great king, once a shepherd boy himself, saw reflections of his younger self, but also something more. "My son," David said, "the weight of the crown is more than gold and gemstones. It is the burdens of widows, the hopes of the poor, and the prayers of a nation." Solomon nodded, though his heart raced. He recalled the psalms his father composed, songs of joy, lament, hope. He felt the melody of leadership calling him. A test of judgment. When two women came before Solomon, each claiming to be the mother of the same infant, the court held its breath. The first pleaded, "He is mine." The second wailed, "No, he is mine." The dispute threatened to tear a family apart. Solomon's answer stunned the assembly, "Bring me a sword." He proposed to cut the living child in two, giving half to each woman. One woman screamed in horror, "No, let her have the baby. Just don't kill him." The other said, "Divide him." And in that moment, Solomon spoke, "Give the child to the first woman. Do not kill him, she is his mother." From his youth, Solomon displayed not just cleverness but empathy, the ability to see beyond law to justice, beyond words to hearts. Legacy of David. David's shadow loomed large. Tales of Goliath, of triumph and exile, shaped Solomon's understanding of power. He learned that a king could be both warrior and poet, conqueror and caretaker. David's regrets taught Solomon humility, his victories instilled courage. In private moments, Solomon would wander the olive groves, reciting his father's psalms, reflecting on the fragile dance between sin and redemption. He realized that wisdom was more precious than gold, a truth that would guide every choice he made. Forging alliances. As Solomon approached the throne, the ancient world watched and waited. Egypt, Phoenicia, the small kingdoms of Moab and Ammon, all recognized that a new power was rising in Jerusalem. The Phoenician connection. King Hiram of Tyre sent cedar wood, craftsmen, and artisans. In return, Solomon exported wheat and olive oil, forging a partnership that would last generations. Together, they planned the Great Temple, mixing Phoenician skill with Israelite faith. Diplomacy and marriage. To secure peace with Egypt, Solomon wed Pharaoh's daughter. The marriage was more than romance, it was a bond between nations. She brought with her scholars, musicians, and exotic plants, enriching Jerusalem's culture. Through these alliances, Solomon learned the art of give and take. He hosted feasts where ambassadors danced under lantern light, spoke of shared dreams, and toasted to mutual prosperity. Each handshake, each banquet, wove threads of peace. First royal decrees. The day Solomon was crowned, trumpets thundered and the masses roared. But the new king did not rest on ceremony alone. He rose before dawn, convened his advisors and set quills to parchment. Decree of justice. Solomon declared that every citizen, from the poorest widow to the highest noble, had the right to petition the throne. Judges would be appointed in every region, sworn to impartiality. Bribes were banned, fairness was law. Economic reforms. He standardized weights and measures, ensuring merchants could trade with confidence. Toll rates on trade routes were lowered, encouraging caravans from Sheba to Ophir. The markets of Jerusalem swelled with spices, gold, and stories from distant lands. Cultural patronage. Recognizing that a vibrant culture strengthens a nation, Solomon founded schools of music, poetry, and philosophy. He brought together scholars of different faiths to debate under one roof. The hum of learning echoed through the palace halls. Religious edicts. Plans for the temple were laid out. Solomon summoned the finest craftsmen and instructed them, "Build a house worthy of heaven's presence." He established festivals, calling the people to gather and celebrate the rhythms of the sacred calendar. A vision of glory. It began not with blueprints but with a promise. King David, in his twilight years, had longed to build a house for the Ark of the Covenant. But God had spoken, "You shall not build it, for you are a man of war." The honor, instead, would pass to his son Solomon, a man of peace. So before his death, David summoned Solomon privately and said, "My son, the Lord has chosen you to build a house for his name. Be strong and do it." These were not just words. David handed him scrolls, plans given by divine inspiration, and a treasury of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and cedar. But more than the wealth, he gave Solomon a mission. Solomon, young and inspired, climbed the hill of Moriah. There, where Abraham once prepared to sacrifice Isaac, where angels had stood guard, he envisioned a structure unlike anything on earth, a temple that would reflect heaven. But a vision requires more than imagination. It demands labor, negotiation, and vast resources. And so Solomon set out not just to build, but to transform a nation. Labor, finance, and diplomacy. Word spread quickly, the king would build a temple. First, Solomon reached out to his father's old ally, Hiram, king of Tyre. The Phoenicians were masters of timber and craftsmanship. Solomon wrote, "Send me cedar trees from Lebanon, skilled workers in wood, stone, and gold. In return, I will provide wheat, oil, and wine." Hiram agreed, sealing a powerful alliance. Lebanon's forests echoed with the sound of axes as trees were felled and floated by sea to Joppa, then hauled to Jerusalem. Stones were quarried and shaped in silence. No hammer rang within the Temple Mount. More than 150,000 laborers, craftsmen, and overseers worked across Israel and Phoenicia. Financing such a project required more than taxes. Solomon reorganized Israel's administration. 12 regional governors were appointed, each tasked with supplying provisions 1 month of the year. Gold from David's wars filled the treasury. Tribute poured in from subdued kingdoms. Diplomatically, Solomon cultivated peace. Through strategic marriages, alliances, and trade partnerships, he created a vast network of loyal states. Egypt, Arabia, and the kingdoms of the East sent gifts, spices, animals, and artisans. And so, brick by brick, tree by tree, deal by deal, the temple rose from vision to reality. The house of God. 7 years passed. On a radiant autumn day, Solomon stood before the finished temple, a gleaming structure of gold and white stone, decorated with carved cherubim, pomegranates, lilies, and palm trees. The inner sanctuary was overlaid with pure gold. 2 massive cherubim spread their wings above the ark. It was time to dedicate the temple. The priests brought the Ark of the Covenant, carried on poles, into the Holy of Holies. As they stepped out, a thick cloud filled the sanctuary. The presence of God had entered. The crowd gasped. Musicians played, singers chanted, trumpets roared. Solomon stood before the altar and prayed, "O Lord God of Israel, there is no God like you. May your eyes be open toward this temple day and night. When your people pray, hear from heaven and forgive." Then he turned and blessed the people. "Let your hearts be fully committed to the Lord our God, to live by his commands." The dedication feast lasted 14 days. Thousands of offerings were made. The city buzzed with music, laughter, and reverence. For a moment, the entire nation was one. The temple became the spiritual heart of Israel, but also a symbol of national pride. And it was just the beginning. Harvest, tribute, and trade. Under Solomon's rule, Israel became an economic powerhouse. The land was fertile, the administration efficient. Each district sent grain, oil, fruit, and livestock to the royal household. Agriculture blossomed and the people prospered. Solomon established a fleet at Ezion-Geber on the Red Sea. With the help of Hiram's sailors, Israel's ships journeyed to Ophir, returning with gold, sandalwood, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Caravans came from the east bearing silk, spices, and precious stones. In return, Solomon exported wine, oil, textiles, and craftsmanship. The king built trade routes, taxed international caravans and minted wealth like never before. Even far-off kingdoms paid tribute. Arabia sent camels laden with gold and incense. The nations feared and revered the wisdom and prosperity of Solomon. The silver in Jerusalem was said to be as common as stones. Gold shielded the palace walls. The king's annual income, just in gold, was over 600 talents, nearly 25 tons. The economy thrived, and so did the image of Israel. The court of Solomon. But what was life like inside Solomon's court? Imagine a hall lined with cedar and gold. Lions carved along the staircase. Servants in robes of linen and gold. Scribes, musicians, counselors, and guards all performing their duties with excellence. Solomon's throne was unlike any other, made of ivory and overlaid with gold. 12 lions stood beside its 6 steps, symbolizing power and protection. The king wore garments of fine linen, adorned with gems from Sheba and India. His meals featured the best from every region: fish from the Sea of Galilee, fruits from Jericho, meats from the Judean hills. His court entertained ambassadors, scientists, poets, and philosophers. Conversations ranged from astronomy to agriculture, music to theology. He authored 3,000 proverbs and over 1,000 songs. Nothing was beyond his curiosity. His harem, though vast, was also political. With 700 wives and 300 concubines, many were daughters of kings, a web of diplomacy sealed through family ties. Yet Solomon was not arrogant. He listened more than he spoke. He judged wisely, built generously, and gave thanks constantly, at least in the early years of his reign. The world takes notice. Soon, the fame of Solomon spread beyond all borders. One day, the Queen of Sheba arrived with camels bearing spices, gold, and precious stones. She had heard of Solomon's wisdom and wealth and came to see for herself. When she saw the palace, the temple, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, and the robes of the cupbearers, she was overwhelmed. "The report I heard in my country," she said, "did not even come close. In wisdom and wealth, you far exceed what I heard." She tested Solomon with hard questions, and he answered every one. She praised God, gave the king 120 talents of gold, and returned home in awe. That encounter became a legend, and it was not the only one. Year after year, kings and rulers sent envoys to Jerusalem. Some came to learn, others to pay tribute, others to secure alliances. All left inspired. Solomon's court was no longer just Israel's center of power, it was the intellectual and spiritual hub of the ancient world. The judgment of the child. It was early in Solomon's reign. The temple had not yet been built, the empire still young. One morning, 2 women were brought before the king. They stood trembling in the great hall, both claiming to be the mother of the same infant. The guards watched closely. Courtiers whispered. The case had no witnesses, no documents. Just pain, tears, and desperate claims. One woman spoke, "My lord, this woman and I live in the same house. We both gave birth days apart. But one night, her child died. While I slept, she switched the babies. Now she says the living child is hers." The other interrupted, "No, the living child is mine. Hers is the one who died." All eyes turned to Solomon. He sat in silence, then called out, "Bring me a sword." Gasps filled the room. Solomon declared, "Divide the child in 2. Give each woman half." One woman cried out, "No, my lord. Give her the child. Please do not kill him." The other said coldly, "He shall be neither hers nor mine. Divide him." Solomon raised his hand. "Do not kill the child. Give him to the first woman. She is his mother." The chamber erupted in awe. In one moment, justice was served. A life was saved, and a legend was born. Word spread like fire through the land. The king who could see through lies. The king who judged not just by law but by heart. The debtor's dilemma. Solomon's court did not only hear high-profile cases. He opened the palace to all who sought justice, rich or poor. One day, a farmer from the hill country stood before him. With him was a wealthy landowner. The farmer pleaded, "My lord, during the drought, I borrowed grain from this man. I offered my land as collateral. Now the rains have returned. My crops have grown. I came to repay him. But he refuses my payment. He says the land is his now." The landowner smiled smugly. The contract was clear. He failed to repay by the new moon. "I now own the land." Solomon studied both men. Then he asked, "Farmer, did you make any payment before the new moon?" "Yes, my lord. I sent my son with half the grain. He was late returning." Solomon turned to the landowner. "You received this payment?" "I did." but it was after the deadline. The king nodded. And you accepted it? Yes. Then you acknowledged his intent to pay. You extended mercy by receiving late payment. You cannot now claim the land. The court murmured in approval. But, Solomon added, you were not wrong to insist on the deadline. Let the farmer repay the balance within 10 days. If he fails, you may bring the matter again. Justice and mercy. The balance between law and compassion. That was Solomon's gift. The foreign merchants. Solomon's court became known across the region, not just for Israel's people but for all who sought judgment. One such case involved two merchants, one from Arabia, the other from Sidon. They had partnered to send a caravan to Ophir, investing equal shares. When the caravan returned, the Sidonian claimed all the profits. The Arabian died in the desert, he said. I alone deserve the return. But the Arabian stood before Solomon very much alive. Then explain, Solomon asked, why you said he was dead? The Sidonian stammered, I received word that he had perished. The Arabian interrupted, he sold my share entire. I tracked him here. I demand justice. Solomon requested the caravan's ledgers. He asked for the testimony of their servants. After an hour of questioning, the truth was clear. The Sidonian had assumed his partner would not return. He tried to profit from his presumed death. Solomon turned to the guards. Let him repay double the share for both fraud and insult. To the Arabian, take this lesson to heart. Trust is good. Contracts are better. The court erupted in laughter and cheers. And once again, Solomon's wisdom crossed borders. Lessons in justice and mercy. What made Solomon's judgment so revered? It was not just brilliance, it was balance. He knew the law, but he also knew people. He understood motives, fears, pride, and pain. Where others saw cases, he saw lives. He believed justice was not a cold blade but a warm flame. It must bring clarity, not cruelty. In tribal disputes, he listened not just to chiefs, but to children. In matters of inheritance, he consulted mothers and grandmothers. He honored tradition but shaped it with reason. Once, a widow came weeping. Her sons had stolen goats to survive the winter. The law demanded restitution. The owner wanted them jailed. Solomon summoned the boys. They confessed, trembling. He looked to the goat owner. What is the value of the goats? 6 pieces of silver. Solomon opened the royal purse and paid it. Then he said to the boys, work in the palace kitchens. Earn your keep. Repay your debt to the king, not with silver, but with service. The people cheered. Justice had been done, but so had mercy. Public reaction, and the legend grows. The people of Israel loved their king. Not because he was wealthy. Not just because he built great buildings or traded with exotic lands. They loved him because he listened, because he cared. Every village knew a story. The boy whose land was saved. The mother whose son was protected. The traveler who found justice. Poets sang of his court. Scribes recorded his sayings. Parents told children, one day if you are wise and just, you may stand before Solomon. And it wasn't just Israel. In Damascus they told of the king who could read minds. In Egypt they spoke of his riddles. In Babylon his laws were studied. Even the Queen of Sheba came to test him, and found herself speechless. His judgments became parables. His wisdom shaped the moral compass of nations.